All right, Sue, can you give us a hello?
Hi.
Okay, what a way to make an entrance. All right, so, Sue, how are you?
I'm good.
Cardio Party straight off is saying, Sue, I love your mic cover. Okay, it's
Yeah,
hosting.
it was looking like a penis before, so I just turned it into a face to avoid that again.
That is some quick thinking right there. How has like the last year been for you? Like we got to speak, I think 8 or 9 months ago. Had a lovely
Oh
hangout
my
on.
gosh, has it been that long?
It has been that long.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was on
That creeps
Overthinker
me out.
Society.
That creeps me out a little bit. 'Cause it literally just feels like yesterday that we spoke.
It does, right? We're talking about the passage of time is kind of like creeping you out.
Yeah, it's creeping me out like crazy. I'm just gonna wake up tomorrow and find out that I'm like 96. If I can't live for that long.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully. I always say that I want to live till like I'm 102. I think 102 is a good age to go,
Right.
you know?
What
I
is
feel
it
like
about
it's
the two?
I don't know. Just feel like 100 just feels a bit like, oh, I'm going now, bye.
Right.
But like 102 feels like, oh, I've kind of like elongated my 2 years extra on top of that century. So I'm just gonna do a little stretch. But like those 2 years were hard, so I'm just gonna go now, you know? Like I feel like I wanna be ready, like I wanna go now. Like I wanna exit this life and be ready for it, you know?
Amazing.
So I feel like those 2 years on top of the 100, I feel like that's a good stretch, I think.
It's just to like prove you really mean it.
Yeah, and like I've done my best, you know.
Yeah.
I've like white knuckled through my century, and like 2 more years and bye bye, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Okay, here's a bit of a random question for you.
hmm
Let's say you're 101, right? So
Yeah.
you're not quite on your way out, but you're like, okay, I've done it. I've hit the mark.
hmm
When you look back on Sue Lee's life, what do you think would be like some of the most interesting things that would have happened, and what do you think were the things where you're like, I'm really glad I did that particular thing?
Are we talking about events that all have already happened, or I hope will happen in the future?
Both.
Oh my gosh. Probably the moment I get my first cat, which is yet to happen, but I'm gonna be an emotional cat mom. I'm gonna like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'm like that moment the cat comes out of the box or the bag or wherever cat comes from, cat mother's belly. I don't know. I'm
Comes out
gonna
of the
be
box.
like crying like hell.
Uh-huh.
Probably also the first moment that I have my first child, not cat child.
Okay.
If I have children.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm sure you would recommend having children of your own, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's worth a shot if you're into it.
Yeah, I will give it a shot if I can.
Okay.
My mom has been like just nagging me about getting grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, Mom, I don't even have a boyfriend. Why don't I, let alone giving birth? I can't. Yeah, but that's gonna be like being a mom to a cat or children, probably gonna be like a good, I think would be a good moment.
Nice.
What else? I feel like I'm gonna remember my first live show. I just get a feeling.
Okay.
I think I definitely will. Or maybe the first show will be a fuck up. Probably, most likely. So maybe not
You'll
the
remember
first
it for
year.
different reasons.
Yeah, I'll remember it for different reasons, but like
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to remember it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But like it will be like one of those embarrassing, like endearing, nostalgic moments,
Mhm.
but not like the most pleasant in the moment.
Fair
Um,
enough.
but I feel like, you know, like once I get through the whole like awkwardness of getting used to doing live shows, I feel like I'm definitely gonna remember some moments there
Mhm.
if I ever do live shows. Hopefully, I would.
Yeah. Do you have an instinct about what you want your live show to be like? Like if you could have like the full on like genie waves a magic wand and
Mm-hmm.
it's like your dream live show.
Oh yeah, I want to be on a trapeze. I want to be trapeze. Never no tight clothes. No tight clothes. No like bikinis or like
Uh-huh.
stuff that like get stuck between your cracks.
Mhm.
Like nothing like that. I want to be comfy, wearing like clothes that don't make me feel like a sausage.
That's awesome. Nice. So Sue, it's been like a year since I'll Just
Hmm.
Dance came out.
Yeah.
How have you felt about like the life of that song, and how that's also kind of like impacted how you're kind of spending your days, where you're focusing your energies? We've kind of talked about you a couple of times on my stream, and I love like just going back through your videos and just going like, oh, it's just interesting seeing like the kind of curve of what you're doing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Thank you. Oh my gosh. I kind of sometimes cringe when I look through my own archive of works. Like in a good way, I guess, because I know that I've tried my best in like each and every moment, but sometimes things didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Like I would set myself some schedules that I kind of instinctively knew that I am like just pushing myself and I wouldn't be able to like pull it off, but I did it anyways and it did really turn out like really bad. Um so like it kind of cringes me out looking through those kind of stuff. But some of them like I'm really proud of because I really worked hard on it. And like not just on music, but like with editing and like brainstorming for how can I make my videos interesting? Because I hate repetitiveness. I want each and every of my videos, every time I put one out, I want it to be different from the ones that I put out before. So in some form or another. So, it's a headache. It's a massive headache when I try to like how can I make this video different when like I've been doing the same thing in this very room? Like how can I spice it up? So it's always a big headache, but I always somehow am able to figure it out, Like not like in a bragging way, oh I'm a genius, like I can think of like some genius ways. But like, the human brain, you can always think of new things and make ways.
Nice. And like when you're trying to find a concept for a video, do you is the musical part of your process pretty separate from the visual side, or do you find like if you're writing a song, you're like straight away like, oh yeah, and this is how the video's gonna go, or do you just focus on writing and making the tracks that you want, and then figure out what to do with them?
Yeah, my answer is the I hate this answer when somebody answers with this answer, but I have to say that it's a case by case thing.
Right.
But like sometimes I would make songs just like in the moment and I wouldn't think about like it's so sometimes I'm so emotionally into writing a song about my experiences, about whatever I'm going through, that I don't really have the space in my head to think about, oh, if I'm going to make a music video for it, if I'm going to like, what's the release plan for this? Like, it's just like a completely cathartic experience, like purely for the sake of making music. And sometimes it's a little more creatively driven, and I would think through things a little more in advance. And sometimes I'm just in this headspace where it's like this weird collaboration between visualization and audio creation. And it's like I would want to make sounds and music that kind of reflects some of the visuals that I have in my head. So there are different dynamics to it, I think, for different projects. And I think that's a fun thing about music. There's no one way to go about it. And vice versa with videos as well. Like, you can make a video and then make music for it. So yeah, it's all different, dynamics.
And then you have a background in like graphic design and everything as well, right? Have you found like that's kind of pretty handy?
Oh yeah. Like Photoshop, Premiere, which is like what I use for editing videos, and sometimes a little bit of animation. And it's frankly not something that I enjoy the most. Animation is such an arduous process. It's just like I have so much respect for people like animators, because man, it's a lot of work. But I know how to do it, and those skills come in handy. Like typography, that's cool. although I always just use Arial. um, or sometimes Comic Sans if I want to spice things up, you know?
Oh, damn. You're
Yeah.
good.
But it definitely has come in handy. Like I think the technical skills, yes, for sure, but more than just technical parts and like you knowing how to use all these like digital tools, I think it's more like the thought process that I learned from studying graphic design that helped me more than anything else. It's like I think a lot of people think that when you study graphic design, it's all about like the visuals, you know? You study about the designing of letters, you study about the layouts, the compositions, how the mixture of visuals and typography like work out. But it's actually a lot more than that. The majority of the things that I learned when I was studying graphic design was how to produce ideas in different creative ways, you know? So we had loads of like modules where we just explore different ways of just vomiting out ideas. You know, we would use a lot of post-it notes. We would be in groups just talking. We would be like doing these crazy speed runs of like, oh, shoot, ideas. We would go outside and do these like weird day projects. And it's just like really funky ways of squeezing out your brain and squeezing out your brain juice for the you know, just ways of utilizing your brain to the fullest. And I think that really was the biggest takeaway from learning graphic design for me.
So it's not just like, oh, you have one idea, then you work on it for a year. It's like,
Oh
it's much
no.
more, right.
It's more like you shoot the shits and just like you just do it. Just vomit it out and not be too precious about your ideas. I always like I try to kind of what is it, like kind of lead Colin and Truman to do the same thing. I don't know if they're still here listening, but like I just love, I feel like it's almost become a habit for me to just like not be precious about ideas, just shoot it out, vomit it out. And among these hundreds or dozens of hundreds of ideas, there will be one piece of information or idea or insight that you will be drawn to and feel very compelled about. And that's what I just go with and elaborate more, do more brainstorm on that piece of idea, and then just go on like spider webs. And then in the end, you just it becomes this like body of this very specific research on this very specific idea. And that becomes, I narrow it down and it becomes this one final product. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally. So if we talk about like specifically like writing a song, you talked about like the catharsis of writing, but then do you have where's the crossover between the emotion or experience that you're conveying and then that idea process? So are you writing like 15 pages of lyrics, or is it like, here's the thing that I'm saying, and then you're experimenting with all these different ways of presenting that? For example, what's your flow, or how does that kind of how does a vomit turn into a track? Specifically talking about music.
You know, actually, when I said like the vomit of ideas, I think I meant more so in like videos, productions, and like more so like things outside of music, actually.
Interesting. Because
when it comes to making music, actually, it's a lot more of a straightforward process than the process that I mentioned before, just now. For me, music, at least, is like this very like intuitive thing where if I feel driven and if I feel this pull towards this melody or this piece of lyric or whatever sound, I'll just go with it. I don't really think twice. And sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't work out, so I need to make some changes and tweaks and then revisit tracks and stuff. But more often than not, it's like I just go for it. And I like it the way that's the way I like it. You know, just do it.
So music is really just something that it's very like got a lot of spontaneity, a lot of intuition, and then it's like you kind of use this other process, this other skill set that you develop to figure out how to kind of get that music out into the world in a way.
Yeah, like give it a body. Give it a body.
Yeah. That's really cool. And when was there like, I mean, I know you've been on YouTube for a minute, but was there a first song where you really sat down and kind of thought through that process of like, how do I present it? Or was there a kind of a breakthrough moment? I think like your first couple of videos were more like you're playing covers, piano covers and everything. And then I feel like there's this moment where like the kind of the you we know, I feel like really kind of started to come out, or really, I feel like you uncorked something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like, I think it's so, this word, it's so commonly used, and now it's become like sort of a cliche almost. But for the lack of a better term, I say it's a journey, because it's like, it's all like experimentation, and I frankly am still figuring out like what my thing is, you know? I want to try new things. Things that are like a little moving us away from my usual comical, like kind of like almost like Charlie Chaplin kind of like side. I want to try more nuanced things, a bit more exploring different like way of expressing, not necessarily just through like comical ways. But I think it just all changes with my personality at the time, which is always changing. You know, it's all reflective of who I am at that moment, and you know, it's almost like I grew I grew so much as a person by just keep posting things on like social media or on YouTube, because each and every time I would post something, it would almost be sort of like this like big self-reflection session where it's like, oh, I thought I was doing the right thing when I was making that content, but I see it now, like out there, posted out there, and it's like, oh, I don't know, I'm kind of cringe, you know? So it's like all like, it's all like just through sheer like just volume of keep posting and keep posting. It's almost like it's almost kind of like it's like carving myself into me, into a version of myself that I feel I can resonate with. You know, does that make sense?
No, that's really fascinating. I love it. And do you feel like you're talking about when you post something, it kind of gives you this different perspective? So
yes,
like, and that's very
sure.
different to just like if you wrote a note and had it in a notebook and never shared it. So what's like that? What do you think it is? This is a bit of a philosophical conversation.
I love philosophical.
But what is it about like putting something out there that generates like that growth or that perspective?
I think there's this weird like detachment that comes from posting stuff. You know? It's like it's almost, I don't know if you feel the same way about music, but your piece of music, the music that you've created on your own in your studio, feels different when it's like out there. When there's an audience listening to it, it feels like a different project almost. It kind of takes its own life and it's out there for other people to translate. And so you almost kind of become your own audience when you put your piece of work out there. So I think not only for music, but for videos and other pieces of content as well, for me, it's like, it's one thing when I was creating it and another when it's out there. So it's like, it's almost like when I post a video, I would be my own audience watching these videos alongside other audiences watching it. So that becomes like this weird, like detached kind of form of self-evaluation. And sometimes I would resonate with myself, and sometimes I wouldn't. And that would give me a lesson, maybe not to steer towards that kind of direction of approach. And it's like I'm theorizing it, but in reality, it's a lot more intuitive than it sounds.
Yeah.
You know, it's like oh, I feel cringe about myself, so I won't do it the next time, kind of thing, you know?
I remember when we spoke last time, you said this thing that I thought was really profoundly insightful around like being aware of how you're feeling when you're listening to your own music or, you know, watching something you've made, and then kind of having a degree of detachment from that feeling. I think you cracked a bit of a joke. You said like it's kind of like my thoughts are so crazy, why would I listen to them? Or something like that. But you seem to display this like understanding of like observing your feelings and then observing yourself, observing your feelings, and even being able to understand, well, right now I'm in this particular state of mind. So I know
Yeah.
that I'm perceiving my work through this filter in this moment.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering like how that's developed like through the posting and everything as well, because I just know so many people, myself included, have really struggled with like how do we regularly share stuff, and I've wound up being really comfortable on Twitch because it feels like it's live and it vanishes, and that's not quite true. But you know, and that's helped me kind of start to use other platforms a little bit. But just I know you've got quite a, again, I know that this is very intuitive for you still, but I also think you're quite sophisticated in terms of understanding how the intuition almost dovetails into strategy or something.
So I think it's actually, I'm saying this to myself as I say this to you almost. It's because it's something that I constantly have to find myself having to remind myself of, but I truly stand by it. It's that nobody really cares. Like it's like it's almost like very in a very self-centered way. We're all like so into ourselves that we feel like what we post out there is gonna be like, oh, offend some people, or like is gonna leave a lasting impact in people's memories. But actually, in reality, it's not. It's like we all have our lives, we all have our individual lives, and we're all busy with our own stuff. So I think, in a way, not feeling too precious about it, about posting and just shooting the shits and just trying different things, just trying new things constantly is really the best way to go about things. And look, I feel like I'm a perfectionist, and I know I don't seem like it, but I would just overthink about everything. Like every single post that I make, I would overthink, and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I should not." Like I would post something and I'd be like, "Oh my god, I should not have used that extra exclamation point." Exclamation mark. I should not have used that extra exclamation. I should not have used that emoji. You know, like I overthink as well, but you know, I always try to go back to a place where, look, in a few weeks' time, maybe even less than that, this is just going to be in the past. Like, I know, like, things that you post on the internet is probably, like, is forever. They say that nothing is, you know, everything is permanent on the internet. And if you think about it, it is kind of scary. But also, there's also so much things on the internet that it is probably, like, what you post today is probably going to be, like, just like buried by all the other things you post later on, you know? So, and I think people are understanding, as long as you're not like actively trying to offend people in a post or something. People are going to be understanding of the changes, and people are going to be just people are going to be adjusting the way with the way you change over time, which we all do. So, I think just like expecting change and knowing that even if you embarrass yourself right now with this single post or this video, you're going to change, and you know, you're going to be a different person. You're going to be posting different things in a few weeks time, few months time, few years time. So I think that's something that I try to remind myself, you know.
That. That's amazing. And I'm curious, like you specifically mentioned like you're a perfectionist, right? But yet you're still able to post things. So, you know, a lot of perfectionists can suffer from the like, I have to keep tweaking it, and they just tweak it and tweak it and tweak it and never share it. So do you have like a strategy to go like, perfectionist Sue, quiet. in order to
Um,
actually share something or call it done?
Man, I don't know. I think it's just hold on. I've got like a list of notes that I just read when whenever I find myself being a perfectionist.
Okay.
Like just like it's just like really standard stuff like live now, learn, fail, grow, triumph, repeat, like ride the wave of life, be bold, live now, feel now. And I have like it's just reiterations of the same things. Just do it.
Mhm.
Just live now, just do it. Don't be too precious. It's okay. Nobody cares. It's like, and I think for me, sometimes it's like there's that element of I'm gonna embarrass myself kind of thing if this video doesn't perform well enough, or I don't know, people don't comment enough. I don't know, like people don't listen to my music, people don't watch my videos. There's that concern.
Mhm.
And I think that's, for me personally, that's like one of the big concerns before I post something, and what sometimes contributes to the triggering of my perfectionism.
Mhm.
For me, I think I look up to people who just doesn't seem to give a shit. And there are people like that. And I don't know if they actually do give a shit in real life, in their personal kind of endeavors, but it seems like they don't give a shit sometimes. And I take a lot of inspiration from that. And I just try to tell myself that, like, just don't give a shit. Just do it.
Mhm.
Just do it. And also, like, there's this philosophy where, like, I tell myself, if you're either proud of it or you gained a lot of joy from making this content, then that's enough reason for you to post it.
Mm.
If you're proud of it, just do it. Just post it. It doesn't matter what other people think, because you're proud of it, or you had a lot of fun. You just had a blast making it. So I think that's all the reasons you need to just post it out there, And I think people appreciate just not being super refined also.
Mhm.
People actually appreciate that. And if you remind yourself that, I think that really helps as well. Like, just perfection doesn't exist, first of all. And also, if you are kind of close to it, there's this like sort of that level of like, oh, I don't know, that doesn't seem right, that kind of instinctive reaction when you see a piece of work that's like too beautiful, too refined, too perfect, too close to perfect, whatever.
Yeah.
There's that like instinctive sense, I believe, as us humans, where it's like, oh, okay, it's like really nice, but I don't know. I think that's really the true reasoning behind the rise of bedroom pop, genres like bedroom pop, where it's like, or lo-fi even, where it's like in standard, like in the traditional production standards, it's not great, it's not perfect, but it's still great music. It's still great stuff to listen to. It feels pleasant to your ears, and it's even more pleasant sometimes than like the super refined stuff. So I think I'd like to think that people appreciate some level of lo-finess, not just in music, but lo-finess in other things, like just being shitty sometimes. Damien, just be shitty.
Well,
you should just be shitty.
People will appreciate that about you.
Yeah. As long as you're not being a dick, Like, I think that's the thing. Like, don't be a dick. Don't be an asshole. But, like, be a nice person. Like, come from a loving place.
Yeah.
But just be shitty sometimes. Just put out some shit music.
Okay, so here, like, you've got a pretty good, like, ability to release stuff or put stuff out there. When we were talking earlier, just talking about, like, when you're writing music, it's very instinctive. Tends to just be like, okay, this is a thing I'm doing now. Like, at the moment, how long or short is that runway between like you're walking down the street, just living your life, and then you're like, oh my god, I have to make this song. You make the song and getting it out. Is it just like all over the map, or do you try to sometimes have stuff that just comes out like in an instant, and then there's other songs that you're like, this one's gonna kind of simmer and wait till the right moment?
Usually, I think more often than not, it's quite in a structured time frame.
Okay.
So it's like, those like instinctive, like intuitive ideas that just like spontaneous ideas that just pop out of nowhere. They usually just exist in like voice notes. So while I'm walking down the streets, I wouldn't like necessarily like, I don't know, if I'm walking down the streets and I suddenly have this idea for a song, I wouldn't like rush it back to my home into this room and start like making beats.
You're like stopping traffic. It's like, get out of my way.
Yeah, like no. So that usually just exists on my phone voice note. So I usually find myself having to like set a window of time or schedule in my day to like really focus and hone into making music. And that requires discipline sometimes because it's like work, it's an occupational thing where you just have to put yourself into this zone even when you're not feeling like it.
Right.
And that's really the true I think that's really the true I'd like to think that's the true artist, like pro songwriter headspace, like you just got to switch it on sometimes, I think. And yeah, I just have to wear my, like the so-called wear my songwriter hat sometimes.
Right.
Like just in the set time.
And do most of your songs start out of like voice memo fragments, or do you like have times when you're doing the songwriter role or the self-producer role where you just sit down and it's a blank screen and it's like, what do I make today?
It's usually, nowadays at least, it's usually less spontaneous, I think. It usually just comes from a piece of like voice memo, like for a chorus melody or like a piece of lyric. And then that's usually how I would just build up from like the bass that I would build up. I recently have not done like those kind of spontaneous sessions where I would just shoot the shits and like, oh, I'll just make some beats and I don't know what's going to come from it. I think mainly because I've just been really busy lately, just editing videos, shooting stuff, and so I just don't have the time to like just play around, which is kind of sad. Actually, I did play around for a bit the other day because I recently got an Ableton Push, and oh my gosh, it's like this whole different thing, and it's like it's a beast on its own. But yeah, I had a bit of fun like playing around with that for like maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. But then I was like, oh, I have to go back to work. I've got some deadlines. So yeah, it's usually just like, I wouldn't say it's too structured, but it does have this kind of like base that I build up from. Usually like a voice memo for a chorus idea or a piece of melody or even like a theme or like just something that I just hummed in my head the other day, and that's been stuck in my head for quite a while.
Right. And do you have stuff where it's like, I mean, you have so many like great titles and like concepts behind your songs and like, the way the lyrics go. Do you have a lot of stuff where it's just like your voice memo might literally just be you saying, I need to write a song about saying thank you to people, or is it like, do you know what I mean? Like how many of your songs more like built from a concept and then it's like you sit down to turn the concept as opposed to like built from this is a piece of the song that I'm going to expand on?
It usually starts from the concept. Like, so there's this, I think the best example would be one of my songs called I Feel Really Ugly Today, I think. So that was actually the co-release with I'll Just Dance a year ago. And that song in particular, I was like just feeling like a piece of crap that day. Like just, yep, you're playing it, right?
Yeah.
It's like literally just me. I feel a little ugly today. And I was feeling ugly today. So I was like, oh, I'll just write a song called I'll Feel a Little Ugly Today. And it's kind of funny. It's just like very kind of, again, very spontaneous, like intuitive. Like, okay, it's a song about I feel ugly today. I say a lot of I feel ugly today in that song. So it's a no-brainer that the song is called I Feel Ugly Today, and the whole theme is I Feel Ugly Today. And it's kind of really funny actually that it's my favorite story to this day. But someone I think commented on one of my posts a while ago where they told me how they discovered my music, and it was that particular person was having a day much like myself when they were feeling a little ugly, so they would just like typing and just like shooting the shit, just like just typing random stuff. And on Spotify, that person typed in I feel a little ugly today, not to like search for a song or anything, just felt like typing it in.
Yeah.
And then they found my song.
That's wild.
You know, and that's just my favorite story,
Yeah.
you know, it's just great.
I love it. Oh,
Yeah.
It's so fascinating. So do you feel like, is there almost like a sense of freedom from just knowing what you're focusing on in a certain period of time? And given that you're working on all these different areas, do you sit there and go, okay, it's like the afternoon, I better do some work. What am I going to work on? I'll work on a video. Or do you map out in advance, like knowing evenings are video times, or Wednesday's a video day and Tuesday is a song day? Like, how do you kind of juggle the different roles?
Yeah, I think I'm slowly beginning to see the appeal in having a bit more structure in my schedule. Before, you know, I was telling Colin and Truman, I was like, oh, I just want to be more intuitive. Like, oh, I have days when I have serious PMS, and I'm like, no. And those days do exist still. And I'm going to be like, on those days, don't talk to me. But they are true in a sense that, like, when you give yourself this schedule, this set schedule and this set time frame even, to work on something, it means anything outside of that is your free time, you know? So that almost creates this like 9-to-5 job kind of thing where when you're at work, you work. When you're out of work, you're free to do whatever you want. So yes, there are days as freelancers, as artists, as, you know, as freelancers where you just have loads of work to do and you just end up not having enough time for yourself. But you still have a schedule, and when you're done with the work that you've allocated to yourself, then you're free to do whatever you want for the rest of the day or for the rest of the week. And I am slowly being drawn to that kind of lifestyle where I'm filling up my calendar. I'm trying to meticulously like write down what I'm supposed to be working on that day. And it's like I used to be kind of a little bit allergic to to-do lists. And I think there are different ways to go about tackling and using to-do lists. But like, I feel like when I write it down on my calendar, it's like I'm making myself accountable to do these things. Whereas like if I write it down on a piece of paper and I can like just tear it out and put it in the trash, you know? If it's like, and I also have a shared calendar with my team. So it's like when I put it on there, it's there, you know, I got to do it. And yeah, sometimes I have to postpone some bits because I actually have been busy doing other stuff. But more often than not, I feel like it just I hold myself accountable. And they're like witnesses to people who actually can see my progression and my productivity. And I think that helps a little bit. But then I crash big time sometimes because I would overwork. So I'm trying to find the balance, but I find that calendar method works really well recently. It's been working well for me.
Nice. And so what are the kind of things you put on there? Is it like it's a production day, or is it like here's a deadline?
Oh yeah, it's like, oh, it's editing day, or if I have to shave. If I have to like meet my friends, say happy birthday to that, like every little thing, every little detail, including like finish 80% of this video project, finish 70%. So I feel like, you know, giving myself as specific as like workload like that work goal, and kind of set it as specifically as possible, that really helps. Sometimes I would feel like I really cannot grasp how long this work is going to take. So those times I just like put a little bar of window in my week, or like from Monday till Friday I will work on this project, but that color bar for that specific task indicates that I'm not sure how long this is going to take. So it's almost like another to-do list to figure out the specificity of the workload that piece of project is going to take, Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting when we just have like, I know I just need to work on this thing versus like this thing either has to be done at this point in time or will be done at that point in time. But I'm also just really interested with like, are you kind of consistently, just because I think like, shooting a video is one thing, consistently making songs is a thing, even posting is another thing. Like, how do you kind of balance? Does a song have to get to a certain point, then you go, okay, now I know it's time to go into video mode? Or are you kind of trying to constantly keep all these different areas more or less going on simultaneously?
I find that I'm slowly finding that music is like, I can't do it while I'm doing other things. I think that I'm slowly starting to realize that's why artists take a hiatus from their social media and posting anything for an elongated period of time when they start working on their albums. I never really understood like, oh, they can continue posting, they can continue interacting with their fans when they're making music. But man, making music and working on production and working with other artists, that's so time consuming, and it also requires a lot of mental energy as well. So I find that making music and making videos and contents are actually quite hard to mix in together
Right.
in the same kind of time frame, the same time schedule. So I feel like with music, I just feel like at the very least, I need to have a whole day for just making music. Even if I'm not spending the whole entire day on making beats and writing songs, it's just like the headspace that I can't switch from like editing videos and just switch all of a sudden to writing songs. It's just like it's a whole day dedication thing,
Yeah.
But when it comes to like just pure content stuff and posting, those are like in the same realms, if that makes sense. So that's more something that I can juggle at the same time, like simultaneously, like loads of different things. But music is a whole different beast, and I need to like set myself a block of time, usually days, to just focus on and nothing else.
Yeah, and do you notice like if you've been working on like videos and all this other stuff, like coming back to music, does it take you a while to get like the momentum going? Or do you find it really easy, just like as long as like, you're thinking about that and you don't have to think about anything else, you can just kind of sit down and it's like, whew, off you go?
I think it's more the mental the mental preparation before you actually get into work that's more intimidating and overwhelming than anything. It's like, like the thought of doing work, is actually sometimes more arduous than actually doing the work. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, sometimes the hardest thing in the world is literally just sitting down at your computer to do it.
Like, oh, I need to open up Ableton. Oh, I need to plug in my mic.
Yeah.
But you just do it and it's a flow. The rest of it is just like, you enjoy it. It's great. You pop in a couple of caffeine pills and a bit of some coffee here and there. You're good to go. But it's just that mental process, that mental headspace, the headspace you're in before you actually do the work that actually takes the longest for me, ironically.
I feel that, yeah. And I'm wondering, like,
Yeah.
especially when you come out of like a different headspace, do you need to spend more time psyching yourself up than say if you have like a week or 2 weeks where it's just making music? Is it easier and easier to sit down each day?
I think it's actually physical fatigue that you need to recover from, like physical mental fatigue, because more than anything else, like, oh, like switching gears or switching hats or whatever, I think it's actual fatigue that you're recovering from if you need some period of time switching from work, this specific kind of realm of work, into another. it's like we may be sitting in a chair and working all day long. It doesn't seem like we're doing much. We're just clicking and just typing stuff. But that actually requires a lot of energy. You know, they say that like people who study for exams like burn some extra few hundred calories a day, even if they're just like sitting in a chair, because they're using so much mental energy that it's exhausting. It's actually, you feel physically exhausted after you worked on a song, you've written out a lyric for a song, edited some videos. You were sitting down, you weren't getting anything, like you weren't moving around, but you still feel exhausted. And sometimes I find that I need a fair amount of break from that, like after I finish that kind of work. And so I sometimes try not to like get too hard on myself whenever I feel like I'm not ready to switch gears and get into another like project, because I know that I'm fatigued, and it may not be in a traditional sense, like physical fatigue, like I'm not sweating or anything, but you know, I like my belly flaps are still there, but I feel exhausted, and it's a real thing. I try to remind myself that, you know?
That's wild. So on that, like, what do you do to relax? Like when you know if you're kind of a bit burnt out, what's the Suli recovery special?
Hey, I eat. Try not to do that. Try not to do too much of that. It's just like, you know, I put in a piece of food, and the rest is like it's a blur. It's like it's like the rest is just like I just like lose all memory. I black out whenever I eat. But also like I go out on walks and watch cat videos, and I picked up on dancing recently as a hobby, because that's what my doctor recommended, that I just take up a hobby that's not directly related to my work. And it's weird because I do dance in some of my videos, but like taking up contemporary dancing just felt like a completely different thing. And so I just took it, and it's fun. I've been having a lot of fun with that. I have muscle aches sometimes, so severely to a point where I find myself not being able to work sometimes when I have to. But you know, taking up hobbies like, you know, exercising is great. I hate exercising, but I find that dancing is a great one. I feel like it's the one that I click with so far, so good kind of thing.
So is that like full like dance classes and learning like choreography and everything? Right. Nice.
I wish there was the choreography part.
You wish there wasn't?
Because I hate like, yeah, I wish I didn't. You have to use my brain, but these sports, you have to use your brain, you know? There's a reason why.
My partner was telling me somewhere that like the most effective thing in terms of like combating like brain degeneration, or like for older people where their minds are starting to go, apparently dance classes are the best thing, because you have to engage everything, and it's like the connection of your brain to body and how it's across time, and it's learning, and apparently it's just like amazing for your body and brain together.
Yeah, that what is it called? Like brain and body connection. I think there's a word for it. Coordination, maybe?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. There's like this weird like multitasking going on where you're like, you have to be focused in like getting the routines right physically, but also you have to memorize the routine. So it's like you're juggling the different things all the while doing this one piece, you know, one set of routine. So yeah, I find that that's a whole different like, you have to be in a different headspace when you're taking up dancing, but in a good way, you know? I love that feeling when after I've finished the class, I'm like covered in sweat. I love that feeling. It's like I've done something, you know? And I think that's why people get addicted to exercising sometimes, because they just like, it's like gaming, you know? They say the reason why people enjoy gaming is because they have this sense of like accomplishment after they've finished a level, or like, I don't know, reached a certain, I don't know anything about gaming, but like, you know, but that sense of accomplishment, you know, it's not necessarily false accomplishment either, because you've done something, especially with exercising, you've gotten some physical activity and you're sweating. So that's good, you know? So I love that feeling. So that's something that I've been doing a lot of.
It must be like the perfect kind of antithesis to the overthinking side, because it's like you have to think about it so you can't overthink about something else, right? You can't be like abstract in the moment.
Oh
So it's like,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
brain, you're full right now.
Yeah, bye bye, overthinking. Like, I have no space for you,
Yeah.
overthinking. Bye bye. It's really great, actually. It's really great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. The I'll Just Dance remixes have all just come out, right?
Mhm.
And I saw Will Hatton's remixes out. And
Yes.
is that you on like
Yes.
a rooftop dancing?
Oh.
Or is that
Yes. Yes.
Okay, nice. Because I know that you post from the outside world, but have you done literally like all of your other videos in your room?
Yes. Well, so far
Right.
they've been in my room completely, like entirely.
Mhm.
But for this remix, I did something really
It's
fun.
kind of like, whoa, Sue's outside.
I'm outside!
Whoa!
Yeah, I know. Actually, like I actually come to a point where I just like kind of run out of stuff to do in my room.
Mhm.
And when it comes to at least music videos, I still like making fun, like nonchalant vlogs and stuff in my room, and like podcasts and stuff obviously happens in my room still. But like when it comes to music videos, I want to make it spicy, you know? Like I said, I hate being repetitive, and it's like if it's the same setting, the same environment every single video, it just gets a little like, I feel like in my own standards, it could get a bit tedious after a while.
Yeah.
So
Alessandro's just said the Sooniverse is expanding. Sooniverse is a great term.
yeah, I know. It's like it's a word. It's a thing
Yeah.
that people. I mean, I self like kind of absorbedly, I kind of make up words using my own name,
Right.
and it's like I can't help it.
Mm.
Pun is in my genes.
Yeah.
I love puns.
Nice. How's the vibe on your Discord? You had me as a guest on there a while back, and I like really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, this is what Discord's for.
Discord, my server has been. I actually said this the other day that I'm really actually proud of how wholesome people have kept the server.
Mhm.
The people on my Discord server, at least, because I know some Discord servers can get pretty rowdy and a bit hectic.
Yeah.
I mean, there are like gazillions of servers out there, so God knows what kind of servers there are out there. But like with my server, I feel like I'm just in awe of how wholesome it has been. Like, not too much like weirdness going on. Sometimes I think there are some weird bits going on, but that's fine, you know, that's the internet. But like in general, it's fine. Like I love it. You know, people post animal pictures is pretty chill.
Yeah.
You know?
And did you like I had a Discord on the stream for a minute, and then I found like Discord, just the structure of it, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I always felt like really overwhelmed when there's like so many messages flying around.
Don't worry, you're not the only one.
So yeah, I set up this thing called Complete Producer Network, which is like a different environment. You have like nice long threads and stuff. But but it was interesting when I set up the Discord. It was literally just like hang out with some people on Twitch, and they were just like, start a Discord. So I was like, okay, start a Discord. And I'm wondering how like yours came about. Did that kind of come through doing the videos, or were you doing other forms of kind of talking to people in real time? Or I know you're quite good at commenting when you post a video on YouTube or something like that. Or did you just go like, oh, it's a thing, I'll just set it up and see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know the existence of Discord until Mama Colin told me about it. Colin is my manager. Just call him mom, because he's just such a good mom. But yeah, he told me about Discord, and I thought it's cool. Like, it's a way to just like chat with my people, my community. And it's like I don't necessarily have to like post anything to like have people like invite people into the comments. It's just like a place where people can hang out on their own, but I can stop by anytime and just drop a bunch of random stuff. I just posted a random photo of my new mechanical keyboard the other day, just to like show off my new mechanical. Just got like a cheap one.
Okay.
But it's like my first ever mechanical keyboard, and I'm in love with it. So I was so happy that like, guys, I just like got a new mechanical keyboard. I love it so much. And like I was so excited. And I'm just like choking on my own spit, just getting so excited about mechanical keyboards. But it's a chill place, and I just like the idea of like being able to have a place where people not only are fans of my music, but they can make friends with each other, and I can become closer with my people. And it's just like this really, really chill environment where it's like there's no ego, there's no like hierarchy, except for like mods who it's not hierarchy, they're just there to like moderate stuff.
Responsibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Just keep things at bay, is look out for stuff. But like except for like things like that, it's a very like like a very equal ground. Like we're all on equal grounds, and it's very chill, and I like it.
Nice.
I like Discord. It's pretty. I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie, there are still like functions that just confuse the heck out of me on Discord, like in terms of the technical side of things, like, oh, there's roles and you can allocate roles to people. They're like color coding. It's like so many settings as well. So it's like it's a wild west still for me, but I get when you get through the basics, it's like pretty straightforward. It's just like being in a group chat with different themes.
Right. Oh God. See, I wish someone could have said that to me a year ago, and I'd be like, #got it kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you have Discord now?
No, I've set up Complete Producer Network now, which I'm loving and is wonderful. I can show you.
Oh, it's not on Discord.
No,
thing.
it's got a lot more capacity to do some quite in-depth stuff in there, and I've since I saw you last, I built out a whole program called the Beats Accelerator Process, and I'm kind of on this mission of like trying to download all of the different aspects of my work as a kind of producer and mixer and writer and programmer. So, and that wound up, I found a platform that could handle like lots of different types of content and structure and all that kind of thing. So it's a bit more structured. And also like I also wanted a thing where it's like I just found it so hard to keep a hold of conversations. So just, where you have a post and then there's a thread about the post. Whereas it felt like Discord was like, it's like you say, it's like a group chat. It's like, it's just a different vibe, but Complete Producer.
I actually like it when I get buried by the chat.
Yeah.
It's just like I would say something and it just goes completely ignored. I love it actually.
You're like,
yeah. It's
awesome.
like, yeah, well,
yeah.
My hand's hanging, but like, I like it actually when I'm just like.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, like, that experience when you guys invited me onto your Discord is like really getting to understand like the real-time flow of it, and it was like, oh, right, this makes so much sense to me now. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot speedier, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think my server's still pretty chill to a point where like every comment can gets noticed, whereas like, some massive servers is just like the chat just goes like blah, 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 blah,
yeah,
and it just like becomes a domino.
Totally. Rambo, thanks for the cheer, incidentally. Really appreciate that.
Rambo's poop.
So, what else do you think 101-year-old you would be stoked about? Like, was there something you had to go through in particular to decide, like, I'm going to put my music on the internet? Like, I know you were doing design stuff before. Was there, like, a big kind of fork in the road that you had to come to, or did that all evolve quite naturally? I know you've talked about going live and everything, but are there other things you want to achieve with, like, music and art that keep you up at night a little bit?
So to kind of translate your kind of question more simply, just for the dumb brain for me, for my dumb brain, is it like, what's my, ultimate ambition kind of thing?
There's kind of ultimate ambition. I just think it's like interesting when we think about like when all the kind of busy work of life has passed us by. What are the things where like, yeah, that was a good move? Like, even like for me, I think about like just, I'm so glad I moved to London, for example, when I was 19 years old. I moved to the other side of the world. Thank goodness I tried this. I before I moved to LA, I was like, I'm gonna have to live in LA at some point. Like, I'll be a bit annoyed if I don't.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's kids. I think I also, this is like a season for me where when the pandemic hit, I was like, I know I want to do some different stuff with the internet. This is my chance to like explore a bunch of this stuff. And it was more of a vague, like, I know I need to do something in this space. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll probably be upset if I don't devote a year of my life at some point to just getting really high and playing online video games, like really deep. Like that,
Mm-hmm.
like that's my focus, is just,
Yeah.
and I'll do that when I'm 70 or 80. I'm quite happy with that. Um, lots of things, but I'm just kind of like wondering. Yeah, I guess some people call it bucket list, but it's also like in the hindsight bucket list.
Mm. Yeah. I think immediately I would love to visit the States and just like actually meet you guys in person.
Yeah.
Because this is driving me crazy. Like, I have not met my teammates. I have not met you. I have not, like, there are many friends that I've made throughout the last few months, that I have not met. Like, I have not met. We don't, like, we've never met in flesh. So that's really weird. So I'd love to just get that out of the way first when the pandemic is over. And, I feel I can almost feel the, thrill of just like getting to meet people again in person. So that's like the immediate thing.
Yeah.
But I think I think I just love to this is not like a hindsight bucket list or anything, but this is something that I've recently been like reminding myself a lot about, just recalibrating about my values in life. And it's that I think a lot about my deathbed, like not in a morbid sense, but like I think about the things that I might regret in my deathbed. And by doing that, it's almost like I can avoid having these regrets later on. And one of these things are valuing relationships over anything else. And that's something that I struggle with because there could be like childhood trauma where I had this nomadic life and I was always moving, so I never really had the chance to like make long-term friends, or really really have like this basis, like base group of friends or anything. So maybe that's like, that's the base of it all. But I don't think I've been valuing relationships as much as I should so far. And I'm a very like I may not seem like it, but I'm a very practical person. So in a selfish way, sometimes it's really embarrassing to like admit it, but I'm a very selfish person. And like very like a lot of the decisions that I make are driven by self-interest. Like, if it doesn't do me good, I won't do it. If I think it's gonna do me good, I'll do it, kind of thing. And sometimes I feel like I miss out on opportunities to build really valuable relationships and meet new people and get to make friends, because I choose these opportunities, like driven opportunities, over these kind of building relationships. And I feel like I think about my being in my deathbed and like ask myself, what would I regret the most? And I instinctively feel like it's not like, oh, I could have made that 2,000 extra bucks on working on that piece of whatever. But I think I'm gonna regret a lot about, like, I wish I could have hung out with my family more. I wish I could have hung out with spent more time making new friends and making new friends and like really
Sorry, that was the complete producer network just getting really excited.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just valuing relationships over anything else. And like there's a balance in everything. You can't just like throw your career options, career choices out the window and just focus on making friends. That's just not ideal, obviously. But there is such a thing as, I think, a good balance. And I think personally, my balance has been out of balance. It's just my complete lack of social life in Korea, just tells me that. And I don't want this to last any longer before it's too late, So I think that's, and I like, it's all always, again, it's easier said than done. Sometimes time is precious. So it's like, oh, I could just work instead of like doing this little like connection, like touch base session with somebody else, But I then I go back to my deathbed and like I'm gonna value relationships if it's make friends,
So
make people.
it sounds like you actually have like quite a few. Oh, sorry about the big dinging there. It sounds like you have quite a few like almost like what's the word I'm looking for? Landmarks, milestones, North Stars, like reference points that you use to calibrate yourself. When you're talking about like you have your list of things to combat overthinking. And then you have the kind of deathbed thing, like, and it sounds like you refer to it relatively often. So have you kind of like built out, are there any other kind of like touchstones that you have in your mental model that you go, I'm just going to use this thing over here just to recalibrate myself again if you feel like things are getting a little off?
Note taking. Man, I'm a religious note taker. Like, I categorize my notes as well. So I have this app called Color Note, and not sponsored or anything, but I'm a religious user of that app. But I don't think it's like actually usable. That function is usable on like Apple phones, like iPhones and stuff. But like on Androids, you can actually like have as many of these little sticky note things on your like home screen.
Our friend Zoe has a question.
Yeah.
Which is how long have you been a songwriter?
A year.
Literally 1 year?
Yeah. 1 year and a half. Maybe it's getting close to 2 years, actually, more than 1 year. But yeah, about a year and a half.
Okay. So had you been playing music for a long time, but not written anything until that point?
Well, I was like, I started I was classically trained like cellist, if anything, but I had no prior experience in production or like songwriting in terms of like traditional like pop music or whatever, like music production, So I started making music, writing music, producing everything from from like a year and a half ago.
That's wild.
Last June, I think. May.
So what was the first song you wrote that you shared with the world?
I think it was either like Dada or Bitches in My Head.
Wild.
There were actually songs that I uploaded and then like had to take down because I was not happy with it. So there's this song called Jelly Ride, and it's like on my YouTube and stuff, like, and I think also on SoundCloud as well. But I was still at the time like this, like in this very perfectionist mindset where I was like, oh, I cannot let this exist in my Spotify. So I just took it down. And I just wish I kept it there because it's almost like it's a documentation of my journey, So ever since, I didn't take down anything. And I think it was like either Dada or Bitches in My Head.
Okay, amazing. Do you have to ask, right, we were talking about like, you're saying maybe going live at some point or traveling post-pandemic. Like, how has the vibe been in Korea this past year? Is it been pretty locked down, or you've posted videos of you walking, but not necessarily videos of you like in the middle of crowded rooms, which I'm not sure if that's your scene anyway.
I mean, people like actually lockdown wise, we were doing better because we never were in like proper lockdown before. So I think in a way it was good that all the restaurants were always open and we were able to like have gatherings as long as they were not like massive parties or anything like that, But in terms of the vaccination, it's actually been coming a lot slower than the States, I heard. Because the people who are in the States right now, apparently they're all like vaccinated now. Like, Colin's vaccinated, Truman's
Mm-hmm.
vaccinated. Like people that I talked to in the States have been vaccinated. Are you
I've had my
vaccinated?
second dose. Yeah, 1 week ago.
Oh,
Yeah, thank
congrats! Oh
you.
my gosh,
I'm
I'm so jealous.
I mean, it's the turnaround has been nothing less than astonishing. It feels a little bit like we were living on this whole other timeline for a while, and then suddenly
Yeah.
like went through like a magical mirror, and now it's like, oh, things are working. You know.
Yeah, I mean, the states has been doing
Yeah.
good with vaccine, like getting the vaccines out there. Like it's just get, getting out there so
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah. It's kind of wild.
And I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed. Right now, like we don't have access to
Okay.
vaccines.
But it wasn't.
No.
But things didn't get quite as crazy. Like the overall way of kind of controlling it's been okay.
Yeah, yeah. Overall, I think like the control, like the rates aren't that
Right.
high.
Good.
The cases that have been confirmed aren't that high, but I think vaccination is a whole different
Yeah.
thing, and it has been coming as fast as we'd all like
Right.
it to be. And there were like the brands of vaccination that are mainly distributed in Korea have been kind of have some cases of reports where it's like it has some side effects, and it's nothing too big enough big of a reason to like avoid getting vaccinated altogether, but there has been some cases where it's like it induced some blood clots in like younger generations, and it's a little scary. And Pfizer and
Moderna.
Moderna.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how to pronounce
Mhm.
the name, but those aren't the ones that are used in Korea
Right.
at the moment, mainly at least. It's like AstraZeneca,
Okay.
yeah,
Astronomical.
AstraZeneca. Yes,
So
yeah.
if there was no pandemic on, do you like
hmm
go out much? Do you go to shows? Do you go to like clubs and listen to music, or do you kind of keep to yourself and just listen to music on headphones, or what's your kind of like in a normal world, what's your kind of musical sphere like?
It's usually the same, actually. Like I've always enjoyed like you know, earphones, headphones, and walking, going out on a stroll. I would say that I'm fairly a late bloomer when it comes to music,
Right.
just as a
Yeah.
listener in general. I didn't listen to music actively until I was like late in my
Wow.
teens,
But you'd still classically
So
trained kind of thing? So
yeah,
you're
yeah, like
right.
I started playing the cello when I was like
Mhm.
8, but I of course like grew up listening to K-pop because that was what was always playing on
Yeah.
TV and like radio and stuff. But I never I never had my favorite artist in particular. I never like had this like playlist or anything. I never owned an MP3 player or anything growing
Mhm.
up. Um, I remember I was a kid. I used to listen to like ringtones, and I thought that was cool. Like default phone
Yeah.
ringtones. I thought those were cool. I was like, oh, this is a
Yeah.
vibe.
Amazing.
Yeah, and yeah. I mean, I think I'm a fairly late bloomer when it comes to listening. I only went to my first ever live like show as an audience like only recently,
Mhm.
like a few like 2-3 years
No
ago. I
way.
went to my first
Who was
live
that?
show. It was Tom Odell, and man, it was
Really?
amazing. Tom Odell is just it's just like so surreal when you listen, like when you actually see the artist that you've been listening for the last
Mhm.
months, like hardcore, just like I cried.
Oh.
Yeah, I cried. Like, and there's like this massive dude next to me was like,
Oh man,
get yourself
I have
together,
cried at
man."
gigs. Yeah, the first time it
Really?
happened, I was actually shocked, but it felt like really right.
Who was it?
I'm gonna sound like such a cranky dude. There's a band from Montreal called Godspeed You Black Emperor, and they play like the
Oh,
really kind of it's all instrumental, but like it's like the 18-minute long song, and the first half is feedback kind of thing.
whoa.
But I think I saw them in 2001, and I was working on like a breakbeat record at the time. I was like super,
Yeah.
super deep in this record that was all just like on computers. And it was great. I'm very, very happy with the album. And I'd kind of found the Godspeed You Black Emperor CD just in a random record store. It was like a staff member recommends, but no one I knew them. And they were playing in Brighton, which is where I was working, and I didn't know any of the venues, so I like bought a ticket and then went down there, and I expected that I was going to go to like this really like small like 200 person kind of grimy club or something like that, and there was like 5,000 people there, and then I think they had about 18 people on stage, and it was just like all live. And so there's just something about
18.
yeah, like being around that many people. It was, you know, they have like 3 snare drummers or something like that. I'm getting it wrong in strings, and it was all like kind of nuts. But they just started, and I was just like started sobbing for like a lot of it, and it was just like, wow, this is interesting. Like, you know, yeah, it's kind of
for sure.
wild.
I mean, if it's like 18 people playing, that's almost like an orchestra. That's like a
kind of thing.
It's like an orchestra. Yeah.
And then jet lag and crying at music is amazing. One of my best crying at records was I'd flown to London to work with, who was I doing that? There's an artist called Starling. I don't think that stuff's come out yet, but I was in a minicab, as they say in London, going through North London, like to the studio, and Belinda Carlisle, Heaven is a Place on Earth came on. I don't know if you know that song.
No,
you gotta dig it out. It's like a massive 80s hit. But just like started crying. It was just like so beautiful. And it has like all the
like in the cab.
Yeah, just like sitting in the back of the cab, just like like it's so beautiful. They have this key change at the end. It's just like, oh my god, this song is sublime. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm happy that there's a balance between Belinda Carlisle and Godspeed You Black Emperor to cry at. Yeah. So I feel like I still want to come back to this. Like, you came to music late. You only went to a show like a handful of years ago. What was this thing that was just like, do music? Do you know what I mean? Like, what was, did you wake up at night one day and just go like, I'm doing music? I know you said it was kind of quite natural,
But I think you actually just hit the nail on the head. It was this weird, like, subconsciously, like it was like I woke up one day and it was like, I'm here. You know, it was just like every single decision that I made was like, okay, I'll just do it. I'll do it. I'll do this. Do, and I'm here. You know, it wasn't like, which is kind of weird, ironically, because I'm such an overthinker. So one might think that I would take so long to make these decisions, like these almost life-changing career decisions, but I feel like in hindsight, if I think about it, it was like this weird, like, oh, I'll go with this. Okay. I'm just like, it was a sprint almost. It was like a marathon. Well, sprint or marathon. It was just like a run. And then I look back and it's like, oh, I made these decisions. I made those decisions. And it was like bum, 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 bum. Not like, I don't look back kind of thing. And things escalated quite a bit.
You're living to that escalated quickly meme.
Yeah.
And like, practically speaking, like, you know, say if you woke up in the middle of the night, you're like, I gotta do music. Like, what was the process you went through in terms of, well, I guess I'll need this or I guess I'll need that. So it's not like you spent 2 years researching what you need to do music. You obviously somehow just started making it, right? And then sharing it.
Yeah.
Like, can you walk us through, like, literally, like, if we were filming you with a camera and we were doing, like, the montage cutscene of, like, I don't know, this, starting from, like, Sue's not doing music to, like, now, or let's say to, like, I'll Just Dance coming out. If we're doing, like, the montage cutscene, what are the things that you would be doing?
Okay, so I think I would say that it wasn't like I woke up one day and no equipments whatsoever. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do music, and here we go. I think there were maybe like a week or 2 weeks of that period where I was like, oh, I'm just gonna try this Ableton thing and like production thing as a hobby. And then so that was before I decided that I want to become a musician. I was like, I just like did a little like ding dongs and like here and there, made some really shitty songs that I don't ever want to listen back to. I don't think I even saved them. It's just like really shitty songs. But then I had a lot of fun, and Jelly Ride was like one of the first songs that I posted was written during that period. It was not necessarily produced during that
Mm-hmm.
period, but I wrote the song during that first few weeks of having bought some of the gears, and they were like, some of the gears I still use, some of the gears I've kind of fallen out with. Um, but
And so that
that was pretty
was
much,
that more of like a,
yeah.
oh, you'd heard Ableton Live as a thing, and I'll just have a play with it, kind of,
Yeah,
right?
and it was like the only option that I had with my Windows. I wanted to try Pro Tools
Mm-hmm.
initially, but that was only available on MacBooks. So I'm a hardcore PC
Mm-hmm.
user, just putting it out there.
Do it.
Yeah. But yeah, Ableton just seemed like the best option. Didn't think twice about it just because it's like not like as a hobby, I don't care. I'm just gonna go with it. I would have gone with GarageBand if I could, but I don't have GarageBand on Windows. So I just got Ableton and did it. And that was those few weeks were pretty much the only kind of pre-period before making the big
Right.
decision.
And did you? I got to ask, like, did you do the built-in tutorials on Live? Like, it's got those. Oh, really?
No,
Or did you watch
no.
YouTube videos or something?
I couldn't be
Right.
bothered.
Or you just
Yeah, I
opened it
couldn't be
up and
bothered.
started clicking buttons?
Yeah, and it's actually quite convenient because it works quite similarly with some of the editing programs that I was using for graphic design. So, like Premiere Pro, it kind of works the same, like except that the layers for videos are just tracks or for sounds. So it works kind of the same.
Right. And so you're saying there's this
But obviously,
period of a few weeks, and you're kind of just effectively like playing around and exploring, and then you specifically said, I think, the big decision. So was there like there's a bit of an on-ramp, and then at some point, when did it turn into a big decision, or did you feel like I need to decide if I'm doing this or not, or was it just like, I like this, I'm going to do it?
yeah, so if I had to really like get into the details of it, I think there were a few days where I was considering like oh, I want to do this. I kind of want to do this. And I was like I took these few days, like maybe 5 days to like really think about it. And that was really all I was thinking about at that point.
You know,
And
it's saying like, can we take a camera and film what you're doing? Can we now take like a microphone and hear like what were you thinking at the time? What were the thoughts in your head around this?
okay, so I don't remember, but like I remember listening to Joji a lot at that point, and I always say that Joji is like I'm such a huge fan of Joji because his music was one of the biggest contributors of making of my decision to become a musician. So I think I was listening to Joji a lot, and I was like, oh, I want to make music, and listening to Joji's music makes me realize that I don't have to be perfect. So might as well try it, kind of thing. That was one of the things that I was thinking a lot. And another thing, I'm gonna be a starving artist for sure. That was another big thing, because like, oh, musicians, but like I don't know anything about Instagram. I don't know anything about social media. I don't know anything about YouTube, posting anything on YouTube. And like I've always been I always had that boomer energy in me. Like I don't care about I never cared about Instagram. I never cared about Twitter. I never really was active on these platforms. So it was like that technical concern of like, oh, how am I gonna like learn from scratch? So there was that
And,
kind of
and so that was all
overwhelming.
wrapped up when you're like, I want to make music. I want to like make a go of music. I will
Yes.
need to understand how to use these things. You
Yeah.
just kind of instinctively knew that this was part of the whole package for you.
Yeah, I think so. I think I have seen enough things to know that being able to make music isn't enough for me as an artist. I think because I wanted to be an artist, like not necessarily a producer or an engineer. I knew that being an artist just entails being on social media and being out there myself rather than just being behind the scenes and making sounds. So that's specifically what I knew that I had to do just from the get-go. So there was some like I had to wrap my head around like if I'm actually going to be able to pull this off. I know I can't, but does that outweigh my drive to actually go for this thing? know. So I'm just gonna go with it, kind of thing.
Interesting. And so, then were you in a way like learning all these platforms at the same time? So you're learning live at the same time as learning YouTube? Or by the time you had that 3 week or so kind of playing around where you're like, I know what I need to know in live to like write and record songs?
I was learning as I went, like all these things. I think when I made my Instagram account that I have to this date, and my Twitter account and my YouTube account, I was still learning how to record on Ableton.
Right.
Like, it was still a work. Everything was work in progress, and I just learned as I went. That was the start of the year and a half, or however long I've been doing this.
Amazing. Do you mind if I actually like, I want to go see what your first Instagram post was, if that's okay. Gotta check it out. I think it's really interesting that you kind of like instinctively were just like, this is part of the whole package of what needs to happen to make this all work.
Cringe as fake. It's gonna be cringe.
It's gonna be fascinating. Okay, you got a good post rate. And I mean, I guess like if you had your experience.
Oh, I post a lot.
You had your experience in design, and were you working in a design company beforehand?
Yeah, I mean, I interned at a few places.
Okay.
They were mostly advertising, so they weren't like visually driven or anything.
Okay.
But I always had a passion for like making things look good, not necessarily perfect, but like.
All right, there's your first post. I don't know if it'll probably take a second to come through.
No, guys, raise for impact. Raise for some cringe. Ah!
So this is what's fascinating though. 86 weeks ago, so that's September 9th, 2019.
Oh my
Amazing.
god.
So and then your first, hang on, I got it. Sorry, we're having a little. And then your first YouTube video is a Chris Brown, so a couple of years ago, and then the Jelly Ride stuff happens there. I'm not in any way like trying to like bust you like, oh, this is an early one thing. I just think it's really like genuinely great that you're kind of in the software world. I'm not sure. Oh, Noel was there. He just mentioned he had a crash. Noel and I have been talking about a thing like in software where you build in public. And I think that kind of reminds me a bit of like when you're talking about posting and everything like that, and that process of posting and experimenting and seeing what the results are and seeing how you feel, but you're kind of like, you're doing it in public effectively, or you're it's not like you're waiting until all these things are perfect and then you're telling the world about it and then wondering why is no one listening to this? I've been working on it for 4 years or whatever.
Okay, so I'm gonna say something. If I knew you back then when I was first starting out, and you told me, well, you just told me that I am putting myself out there as this imperfect artist, this like someone who doesn't know what the frick I'm doing, I would not have posted these things.
So those are your words and not mine, just to be clear. I think it's great that you're posting, and I think that's fascinating. But
because this is going to sound so arrogant, but it is true that when I was posting these things, I thought I was nailing it. I was proud of it, and I thought I was like, oh, this is gonna be the shit. This is gonna be poppin', you know? Look, if I had any idea of how I'm gonna feel about these posts now, I wouldn't have posted it, because at the time of posting it, I was like, I'm happy about it, and I'm proud of it. And I don't think I can do any better than this. You know, and I felt the same way about the music that I initially posted as well. Like, I thought that was the shit. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be so big, you know? And it's, of course, not true. Like, I was still an amateur, and I still am, but I've changed a lot. I've grown a lot. And, you know, I think that's the thing, like, that blissful ignorance almost, that not knowing what you're doing right now is your best self, almost.
So did past you almost have an expectation, like, I'm gonna post this and it's gonna be sort of like blow up?
Oh yeah.
So how did it feel then to post stuff and like I'm not be like, why aren't I playing stadiums like the next day? Like how did you kind of negotiate that. I've just put something out, and it kind of like I'm still in my room, or the world looks the same like a week later or something like that. Did
Right.
you think much about that, or were you just like, well, I gotta just keep posting stuff, or especially like the
Yeah.
first of your songs you shared?
Yeah, I think the mindset was like, "Oh, I'm a diamond in the rough. I will be recognized soon. You're just sleeping on me." I think I was a lot more arrogant than I'm now. I think I've become a lot more humble about the work. Uh Not in like in a weird way, but like I genuinely think that I've got so much more to improve on, just having seen a lot of our artists and observing a lot of other artists and listening to more music than ever, studying about music production, doing more of production. That actually made me more humble than ever. But initially it was just like, they'll notice. They'll get me. They'll see me in the future.
Well, it's fun.
That yeah.
Before you came onto the stream, Mama Colin was in the chat, and someone asked like how I knew you, and I said, oh, it's through Colin. Well, Colin wasn't in the chat; he was lurking, and then he popped up and was like, yeah, and he actually talked about the fact that him and Truman saw I'll Just Dance on Reddit because it
Yeah.
got upvoted. So in many ways, like, you weren't wrong. Like, people did notice, and then but I guess it just probably unfolded or is unfolding. Like, you never really know how things are going to unfold.
For
But there was
sure.
ultimately, like, you did just keep consistently doing stuff, and then it's because you've been putting stuff out there, people are finding it.
Yeah, and there was a point, I think. It was a gradual one for sure, but this happened much before, like long before All Just Dance was made. But there was a point where I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually going to take a lot more hustle and grind than I thought it would. And, I started becoming a little more modest, a bit more humble, and like, come to terms with the reality of things. And that was actually when things started to become more enjoyable in a way. Like there were some rough patches, but it was like when you face the reality, when you face the truth, it's kind of like, how alcoholics, when you go to like in AA, people are like, they have this declaration first from the get-go, like, I am an alcoholic and I'll never be whatever. I don't know what the exact words are, but it's kind of like really coming to terms with like your reality and, seeing the brutal truth that you're not as big of a big deal that you think you would be. And actually like facing that reality and that truth actually just kind of was a freeing experience gradually, I think.
How did the world look different once you had consciously acknowledged that?
Difficult.
The world looked difficult?
Crippling
Oh, really?
depression, crippling loneliness.
Oh, man.
It was actually, it was freeing, but it was painful, I think, in a weird, like, juxtapositioned way. It's I think I still kind of struggle with it almost because, I kind of recently have been feeling a little stagnant, and I don't know what the outside looks like. Maybe other people have different perspectives when they, as an outsider, when they look at my work and the progress that I'm making. But in my own head, I feel a little stagnant, and I've been feeling a little stagnant recently. Not just in terms of my creativity, but also in terms of my growth, and it's sometimes a little demeaning. But I think it's also like helping me grow as well, like just be more like just not caring about the numbers or the progress per se, but just enjoy the process and just keep on, don't look back, just keep on running, because it's so easy to like get hung up on what you just posted, or some music that's already out, and it's like, oh, I could have done better with that. But it's like, just don't look back, move forward, because you've got some space to grow, so just work on that instead of anything else.
I love it. It's interesting, this whole conversation. For some reason, like, different points in time just seems to be a theme that I don't know, I feel I feel
Gravitated.
gravitationally thingamied
Whoa.
by.
Okay.
If you could go back to like Sue who was starting,
Mhm.
give her any advice, would you have any advice, or are you just like, you know what, girl, you got this, like, carry on?
I would say don't worry about it because you've got some really fun future ahead of you because I know what's going to happen in the future. But I know that that's the most, it's like this time traveling shit. So if I could give myself an advice without, predicting the future, giving a hint to what's going to happen in the future, I would say um I don't know, man. Cuz I genuinely feel like I would still struggle if I were to go back. Cuz it's like I can't other than just telling myself to just keep going, just keep running.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else because it's like that's what I did and that's why I have no
Yeah.
regrets. Um
Uh,
cuz like man, it's like one thing to it's like I'm by no means at that level of like stardom or anything or fame where like you're struggling with paparazzis following you everywhere and you're struggling with fame and people like recognizing you everywhere. I'm not at that level by any means, of course, but man, it's one thing to struggle with those kind of fame related things, but another to start from scratch with 0 listeners, 0 followers, 0 subscribers, 0 everything, 0 skill levels. That's like I think that's like the most difficult step of an artist's life. And I don't think anything beats that, that alongside like crippling loneliness, having no friends and like, that's just it's really hard and I wouldn't want to go back, that's the thing. Um so, just keep on
keep on
going.
going. Yeah, it's fine. It's not like you
Yeah.
could go and, we talked about the way of the magic wand, but it's not like you could go and just make it all easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or even that you'd want to. Some days you might want to. Who knows? Is there like anything you're like really focusing on right now? Like you mentioned before, you're feeling a little bit stagnant, but is there something that you're kind of doing just to try to shake things up, or is there anything you're really excited about learning? Or what's your kind of immediate next mini mission?
Mini mission. I want to keep myself busy, like with as many things as possible. I'm like, and that's like this change. This is gonna change in a few weeks. This mindset of like I want to be busy because like PMS is gonna hit sometime soon, and that just like really changes my personality in a way that I don't want it to. But I feel like myself right now. I feel very in tune with myself. And coming from that place, I really want to stay busy. I want to try new things. I've got like a little like fun my first ever like music video shoot coming next week and I'm really excited and nervous about
like
it.
With a crew?
And
Like,
yeah.
as opposed to just filming
I
yourself?
don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this. I don't know, but I don't know. But I mean, I don't think it's a big spoiler or anything, just to say that I'm shooting like a fun thing. I am excited about that. And I just want to keep trying new things, just keep myself busy with the stuff that I have access to right now, and that's not a lot, because I can't travel. I can't, I've got limited amount of space, but I want to just squeeze the last strip of this room, this place, this resources that I have right now. And that's my goal for now.
Nice.
Just squeeze it out.
Nice. Have you been spending much time, like, have you disappeared down gear wormholes or anything like that? Or are you able to, like, keep your whole process pretty much focused on, like, I have these tools right now and it's all ideas?
Oh, you mean like gear-wise?
Yeah, just like, it's especially like, I mean, you're doing visuals as well as music production. It's so easy to just go like, oh, well, if I have this thing, then it'll sound better. Or do you know what I mean? Or.
So, yeah. I mean, I don't have that with music things. So, like I told you just earlier that I got Ableton
Mm-hmm.
Push, and I'm having a lot of fun learning it. But I do find myself still being pretty attached to the MIDI keyboard that I was
Mm-hmm.
using because it's so straightforward. Like, oh, I don't like it's like the keys are there, so I just press keys and I know what sound is gonna
Mm-hmm.
make, what note it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
make. There's some MIDI drums, I'll just drum some bits. And it's like for me, it's all a
Mm-hmm.
tool rather than like this creative thing that I can like experiment with, you
Mm-hmm.
know? In a way that's like a very practical approach, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way I view things. So I find myself not being too like greedy when it comes to music
Yeah.
gears, but like I wanna get a better audio interface to see if if it does any good for mics, and like I can get better mics, but I know it's not too urgent, but I will get to that at some point.
I really can't breathe. Wish I could have poised like trees more than I can even breathe. Sigh.